Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast. Today, I am joined by Colleen Callander, who is a distinguished leader with over 30 years in the retail industry, including 13 years as CEO of Australian's fashion brands Sportsgirl and Sussan. She is the founder of Mentor Me Women, a keynote speaker, business strategist, consultant, and author of Leader by Design, and co-author of her latest book, Elevate. Welcome to the podcast, Colleen.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. It's absolutely wonderful to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I can't wait to dive in to your journey to share with our listeners. I know we caught up previously and you gave me a bit of an insight of your road, but I'd just love to ask you to kick off, really. Tell us about your journey in retail. You know, I said a 30-year career. So tell me how on earth you got started in that and your journey to CEO.
Sure. Thank you. Well, my career didn't start probably as the normal, going through school, going to uni. I actually finished school at the age of 16. And the reason I did that was because I got a casual job at my local Just Jeans store in Geelong. And I was so excited about this job because I'd worked in my parents' businesses from, as young as I can remember. But for me, this was a real job and it was in this fashion industry that I'd never worked in. And so from the minute I walked through the door, Amy, I loved it. I loved every single thing about retail. And so I worked the entire summer. And then at the end of that summer break, the area manager said to me, "Hey, Cole, we'd love you to stay on with the Just Jeans team. We'd love to offer you a full-time sales assistance job. We think you've got potential." Well, that's pretty exciting when someone, this big boss is telling you they think you've got potential. So I ran home as fast as I could, and as I put the key in the door, my heart sank because I knew what was on the other side of that door, which were two parents. My mum finished school at 13 and my dad finished school at 14, so neither of them had had an education. And here I was about to tell them I wasn't finishing school. I wasn't going to do my year 12. I wasn't going to be all of those wonderful things you wanted me to be, doctor, lawyer, vet, all of these, aspirations they had. I was finishing school and I just want to go and work in retail, but don't worry, I've got potential. And I remember that conversation and the words my father said, "Work hard, love what you do, be passionate and never give up." And those words became my mantra for life. And that's really how I applied myself from starting at 16 to CEO. And I really did do that. I worked exceptionally hard and I was very passionate. And at the age of 18, I was the youngest store manager in the company. At the age of 20, I was promoted to the youngest area manager in country Victoria, overseeing 16 stores. And by the age of 24, I was running the state with 54 stores. So I did exactly what he said and I really applied myself, which is kind of my personality anyway. And then I stayed there for in total 10 years. And then I got a call from Sportsgirl in 1999 asking me to come and join them. And little did I know I would then spend the next 20 years of my career there. It sounds like a very long time, and it was 20 years with 13 of those years as CEO across Sussan and Sportsgirl. So an absolute joy to be in that world for 20 years.
Wow, that is amazing. And crikey, if we think back as a 16-year-old, because if I think of my world, my father had the family business, but I think I was on that path of, the next step of education, that expectation of, school, college, university. If we think of you as that 16-year-old, can you think perhaps if there was certain qualities or skills that you were showing to that manager to be considered, she's got potential to go further?
Yeah, well, I think exactly what, my father said, work hard. I was just really passionate about it. So I was one of those that was there always early, always wanted to stay late, always wanted to do extra, take on new projects. But I'm quite competitive as well. So, and I think that's the A-type overachieving, achievement junkie in me. I'm a real competitive person. So I always wanted to have the best sales results. I always wanted to have then the best store result. Then I wanted to have the best area result. So I was very driven to get great results. And I think, we talk about introvert and extroverted people. I'm actually an introvert by nature. So introverts don't get noticed as often because they're not as loud as extroverts, right? So for me, I really wanted to shine through my results because I knew that's the way I would get noticed. So I really worked hard and I really applied myself to what I was doing.
In those early years, did you ever think, oh, I should have stayed at school? When you were then actually fully working, and I can only assume perhaps your friends were still in education, were you ever thinking as you were getting up early morning to go to work thinking, oh, maybe I should have stayed in school?
No, I never did. I really loved it. And I actually love working. I even say today, Amy, if I won Tats Lotto tomorrow and never had to work another day in my life, I would still keep working because I'm just very passionate about getting up and really making a difference and making an impact and influencing people in a different way. So, for me, it's not work. It's something that I'm really passionate about doing.
Do you think it made you grow up quicker than your peers, feeling that you then had a real job at the time?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely do. I think that you grow up very quickly when you're in what we call the real world, right? When you're at school, people are saying, don't forget to put this in and don't forget to do your homework and, scheduling things for you. And it's a very structured environment where work and the real life is very different. You have to show up as the best version of you. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder. No one's going to, push you the way that you need to push yourself. So I think it's a very different world, and I think it makes you grow up very quickly.
And we do hear stories from a lot of other amazing, successful entrepreneurs around the world who didn't finish school or particularly enjoy school. Did you enjoy school? Did you feel you were good at school, or do you think actually this was the calling? Once you had that summer job, that's where you actually excelled?
Yeah, I think I liked school. I didn't love it. I liked the social aspect of it, but I really found it a little bit boring. I loved working. And as I said, from a very young age, I was always working in my parents' businesses, and I was really intrigued by people and why people did things the way they did, why they behaved the way they did. I was very interested in money and rent and turnover, and I wanted to know about all of these things. So I found that much more interesting than school. And I love maths. I was very good at maths. So numbers was really my thing. So yeah, I really wanted to know about the business world, and I really made it a real sort of conscious effort to find out as much as I could and learn as much as I could.
I often joke with friends these days, now we're adulting, that when you think of maths, you think, why were we never really taught about useful things?
Yes.
I.e. tax and investments and stuff that actually, yes, both as business owners, but just general adults, that is actually what we need to know and really need to know. And I actually did see my old maths tutor earlier in the year, and I did say to her, I said, why did we learn all those things, not all the actual useful things?
I agree. I really agree.
So it's great that, you had that vision to really, I guess, seek out the education in a different environment that actually you enjoyed. And we think along to your, journey to CEO level, because particularly it is inspiring and very impressive. I think certainly, obviously, for us females, and, when particularly ladies like yourself, have a family, have children. But what was some of those challenges that stand out along that journey to that CEO?
I don't think any journey is smooth sailing, right? There's going to be lots of different challenges along the way. I think the biggest one for me would have been burnout. And I had burnout in 2007, and I was general manager of Sportsgirl at the time. And I absolutely love my job. I thought I married the job. Like, I thought life is never going to get much better than this, right? You're general manager of Sportsgirl. I had 3 young children under the age of 10. And I talk about myself in my book as a red Ferrari. But a red Ferrari that never put petrol, never put air in the tires, never left the track. Just every day I wanted to be better and faster and bigger. And, no car operates that well if we don't do the basic fundamentals for it, right? So there was no self-care, no self-preservation. I was just on this crazy journey of my career. And so I hit a wall. That's literally what it felt like. And I remember going home this one night saying to my husband, I'm done. And I'm very black and white like that. And I was so upset because I felt so burnt out that I thought the only thing I could do was resign. That was really the only option I had. And so I went in the next day to resign. And lucky for me, I got talked out of that idea. And instead, they said, Cole, you're not going anywhere. How can we make this work? So, and really, quite a different way of leading back in 2007 where, kindness and people, that really wasn't something that was talked about as much as it is today, although it's always been one of my absolute superpowers is kindness in leadership. But so I actually took 3.5 months off and I put the Ferrari in for an overdue service, and I gave myself a really great dose of self-care. And within that time, I really changed a lot of what I did, Amy. I learned to put boundaries into my life. I had none. I got myself a coach. I built in that self-care that I always thought was so selfish, as a leader and a mother and a sister and a friend and all of these things that we do and hats we wear. Often we put ourselves at the bottom of the list, and particularly people pleasers. And I'm sure you've got lots of people in your audience that are listening that are going, that's me, I'm a people pleaser.
Yep, I can resonate.
That always works out for the other person. It doesn't work out that well for yourself. So for me, I really had to change the way I live my life. And I talk about my burnout as a gift because I returned in the February of 2008, and I lived a life as a CEO for 13 years with no burnout. And that makes you pretty productive and it makes you pretty unstoppable. But when you can do all of those things, but really keep that tank full all the time. So yeah, I think it was a real gift that I went through.
Yeah. And gosh, I imagine, so many learnings that you have taken forward with that, and amazing also to be in the company at the time who could support you on that journey as well. Because there is a feeling for women, we hear this saying bounced around of, women can have it all, or you can't have it all, or you can have everything, but just not at the same time. And, there is many working women these days with families and they're trying to do the juggle. So it can really feel quite unattainable to have the career and to have the family and excel in both. You touched on a few little things you did, but for our listeners, can you share any other sort of key insights on how they can stay sane or make some small changes or, to have both, if you will?
Yes. I think the number one tip I would say is to set very strong boundaries for yourself because they can very much blur the lines. So I always talk about set boundaries around things that are really important to you, and they'll often circle around your values. So my values are family, health, achievement, kindness, and authenticity. So I live my life around those 5 values. And my boundaries are set around those 5 values. And what that does is help us make decisions very quickly that support the asset. And when we talk about boundaries, that's all about really supporting the asset, and that asset is you. So that would be the number one thing I would say. Set really clear boundaries for yourself and stick to those. Communicate them with other people, and be very diligent with the way you live your life in line with your boundaries and values.
That is a good nugget, because even I can struggle that you feel, guilty for saying no to things,
Yes.
or that you then have to explain why you're saying no to things. And I think what's often the case is the other person perhaps really doesn't mind or care, but we build it up so much in our own heads that, well, if I don't go to the thing or I say no, they're going to be offended. And occasionally you do get a response where someone does give you a little bit of an arsey response, should you say. So that can be the challenge there. So thinking as you drew your role to a close at Sportsgirl, what prompted you to finish that CEO chapter and embark on your current business?
Well, 20 years is a long time in any company. But for me, I talk about writing my life in decades, Amy. So my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and I was coming into my 50s as I finished in that CEO role. And so for me, it was, well, what does the next decade now look like? And as I said, I was at the top of my game. I had 20 years. I was at the head of 2 companies that I absolutely loved and people I loved working with, but it was really time to turn the chapter. And so for me, my business really started quite organically, and it has really evolved into what it is today, which is the Mentor Me, the Keynote, my books, which I adore, and I've sat on a number of boards as well. So I feel very blessed to now do my role on a much bigger scale and with many more people. So, people say, do you miss being a CEO? And I'm like, no, I'm actually on a much bigger platform where I can impact, inspire, and influence a lot more people than I could just in one organization. So for me, my purpose is living on, but it's in a much more meaningful and bigger way. So I'm very blessed to be able to do that every day.
That sounds amazing. And I love the thought, as you said, of really thinking about what do those 10 years look like? Because certainly I just feel like, yes, the last 10 years have vanished. Can you share with us some of your secrets and tips of, what made you a successful leader during that journey?
Yeah, I think there are so many things that make people a successful leader. I think my real superpower was kindness, and I talk a lot about kindness, and it definitely wasn't a word that was around when I was coming through the leadership ranks. It was probably a word that came with a bit of misconception around kindness is a weakness. And I actually think the opposite is true. I think kindness takes courage and strength. And I think that's what will separate good leaders from great leaders of the future. And I always like to explain that concept, Amy, because often people think kindness, it's a free-for-all and there are no rules or boundaries and everyone does whatever they like. That's actually not true. That's not what kindness means or being a kind leader means. Being a kind leader means holding people accountable. Being a kind leader means setting very clear expectations for people. Being a kind leader means building true human connections with people. Being a kind leader means pushing people beyond their comfort zone. So for me, that was really the way I showed up every day, was leading with kindness. And, people want to know, where am I at in my career? How am I performing? What am I doing well? Where can I improve? That takes kindness and honesty to have those conversations. So for me, I think kindness was really what separated me from other leaders. And I also think it's why people never left. People stayed in the organizations and grew and really evolved. And it was a place that had an incredible reputation to work because of this sort of kindness that I suppose really centered around the way I led.
I could totally resonate with that, because it reminds me of some of my earlier larger organisations that perhaps, yes, wasn't led with kindness. And in some businesses, you do feel like just another number, especially if they are large as well. So that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing some of that background and journey. I mean, we are now kicking off 2025. So we've got the new year ahead. In the work that you do, through your keynotes and the books and with some of your clients, what messages, if you will, would you give us to kickstart the new year?
Well, to kickstart the new year, I would say that really think about yourself and your foundations. The foundations of you. And that's really yourself, your values, and your purpose. And that's really like building a house, right? If we don't build solid foundations for our house, it won't be standing. So for us, we need to build solid foundations for us as human beings as well. So that really comes back to yourself and your values and your purpose. And then you can really elevate on top of that once you get those foundations right. And Elevate is one of the names of my book that I wrote with Shanna Kennedy, who's an incredible human being, one of Australia's leading life coaches. And that really is all about elevating in all areas of our lives, whether that's our career, our health, our wealth, our relationships, our mindset, our habits. We can make these small changes every day for a really big impact. But that really takes a conscious effort to think about, how can I elevate in these areas? What can I start doing? What can I stop doing? And what can I keep doing? And, I always talk about, Amy, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
If we want something different tomorrow in our lives, then we need to do something different today. And a lot of people think, I want something different, but aren't prepared to put in the work or make the changes. So let's really think about 2025 and what's one area that maybe your listeners here today can think about doing, and what can they then start doing, stop doing, or keep doing in that area to really elevate themselves, because every single human on the planet can elevate.
I love that. And I do have to say, we were very fortunate to have Shanna as a guest also on the podcast last year. And I just think it's fantastic that you two have come together really as this powerhouse female duo with the book that you've written, which I have read and I thoroughly enjoyed. And I guess my excuse is the classic, as you just highlighted. I've read the book and it's actually making some action on some of the tips or things. You read these things with such gusto and I'm like, yes. And then I allow day-to-day life to slip away. So I will be putting that back on the agenda. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much so far, Colleen, for what you've shared with us. And I love to ask all of our guests and put them on the spot a little bit with a couple of cards from our Really Good Conversations pack. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I will ask you question number 1. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Watch out for the red Ferrari. That's what I would say. She doesn't stop. She's crazy. I think we can't change the make and model of who we are. So the red Ferrari I talked about earlier is still there. Probably drive her a bit differently these days, but she's still the red Ferrari. So watch out.
Love it. Love it. Question number 2. Who has had the biggest influence on your life?
I would say my parents. I really credit them for not only the woman I am today, but also the leader I am today. And I was very lucky that I had these 2 incredible parents. My father, very hardworking Italian man. My mum, one of 12 children, lost her own mother, so she was a real nurturer. And I think I was very lucky to be able to take all of those, this hard work and then this really caring, beautiful nurturer and put those together. And so I really credit both of them for everything I have in my life today.
That's beautiful. And I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, they've probably been big supporters of your journey.
Huge.
Yeah.
They are my biggest fans, my biggest cheer squad. And I'm so close with my whole family, actually. Mm-hmm. My whole family's my cheer squad. But my mum and dad are particularly incredible human beings. And, I've always said if I can be half as good as either of them, I'll be, doing pretty well in my life.
Oh, that's gorgeous. And question number 3. What is the weirdest thing you have ever eaten?
Oh, I was in Japan last year doing our walking tour that Shanna and I do, and I ate crickets.
Nice.
Crickets. That's probably the weirdest thing I've ever eaten. Everything's paddock to plate there. A lot of it is like what's in their backyard they're cooking. So this night there was an array of other things on the plate as well, but there were crickets. So I thought I better try one of those. It'd be, I can't not try while I'm here in Japan.
And did you enjoy it? Was it tasty?
It was just like a bit crunchy, that's all. They didn't really have much taste to it. So I didn't need to go back for a second or third, but at least I had one.
Well, good on you for trying. It is when you're in these different parts of the world, you have to have definitely the local delicacies. And sometimes it's somehow, disconnecting the mind to the taste, not really overthinking what it is you're about to have. And the final question that I love to ask all of our guests is, if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I think the person I would ask a question to would be Gandhi. And the reason I would ask him is because he inspired millions and millions of people with his kindness and inspired people to be kind. So I'm very passionate about kindness, and it's free. It costs you nothing, and I think we should have more kindness in this world. And so I would love to tap into him and say, how did he inspire millions of people with his kindness? Because I think we need a little bit more of that.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, can you let our lovely listeners know where they can find out more about you, more about your books, and equally tell us what's on your horizon for 2025 as well?
Yeah, fabulous. You can find me all the usual places. My website's www.colleencallander.com.au, and I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, just under Colleen Callander. And you can also find me at Human Elevation with Shanna, and find out about all the fabulous things that we do. So we've got a great year ahead this year. Our book Elevate is just going off the charts. It is now in the US. It is now in India. And so we'll be doing a tour to India the second half of this year.
Wow.
So we're very, very excited to be able to spread the word that every single human on this planet can elevate, and to really share, I suppose, our experiences and our insights to really help people really, live their best life, not just in their life, but in their life and their leadership and their longevity. So super excited about this year. It's going to be an absolute ripper.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And keep doing the amazing work you're doing and having these good conversations with people all over the world, because they're very, very inspiring. So thanks so much, Amy, for having me on, and keep shining.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.